Right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Peter Murphy Lewis, who is up in Wichita, Kansas. How you doing, Pete?
Wonderful. Happy to be here, John.
Yeah, and Pete is the founder of strategicpete.com. I love that, by the way. I was just going to call you Strategic Pete. I wasn't even going to bother with your name
You
because
can call me that. My wife calls me Sneaky Pete. So
Sneaky Pete. Oh yeah, that's like was that a show?
is
That
it
was a show,
Amazon
wasn't it?
Prime? I think.
Yeah, that's a really really good show actually. Your fractional chief marketing officer helps CEO turn overwhelming marketing data into clear paths for revenue and growth. Expertise spans industries like software, travel, media, even zoos and banks. You've hosted TV shows, you've done documentaries, and you literally live in a zoo. Which, as I said, we're not going to get too much into that because I feel like we just spend the whole time talking about the zoo. But you do live on a zoo. It's very true. All right. And what we're going to talk about today is, practical approaches for CEOs to foster genuine relationships and how staying service oriented and prioritizing meaningful connections over quick wins. So, and you have a book coming out, I think, fairly soon that also deals with this topic. So, um, Pete, I find sometimes people have, they talk about service oriented and customer focused and all of that. I even feel that these things are bumper stickers and they don't really play out in the reality of your experience when interacting with that company or with that brand. So when you work with CEOs and companies, how do you get that? How do you ensure that it's actually this is a meaningful strategy?
Love the question. First time I've ever spoken about this, John. But it is the way that I approach onboarding of any new client. And what I mean by that is from a CEO point of view, I don't ask them, what's your most genuine relationship you have. I start off by saying, depend on the size of the client, right? Like if it's private equity,
Mhm.
introduce me to your
Sure.
3 happiest clients. Tell me why you're introducing me to them, why you think that they're happy. Tell me what it is you do for them from an emotional level, from a financial level, from an efficiency level. Um, and then I also ask them, what is it about the connection with them? What is it about that you give them something that's genuine that improves the quality of their life or their business? And how would you explain that that is manifested? What channel is that
Mm.
on? Is it that you call them on a Saturday when you drive through their town twice a year, going to a golf tournament, and you remember their kids? Is it that you're the most helpful person in the room when like you have to help them out with their tax information for the investments that they have in your private equity, and that you just answer faster than anyone else they've ever spoken to? So you need to start to think about how you're helping them. I'll give you a
Mhm.
couple of examples where I see CEOs or executives struggling with it, especially it happens kind of more in the corporate world where everything's a little bit buttoned up, kind of
Yep.
trade show type people. I always think about, what is the one thing that you can help people out with, that would change anything in change something in their workflow of their life that would improve. And it doesn't have to be related to your company. And I think that it's actually better that it doesn't. Right. So like,
Mhm.
John, you might be helping me with sales and CRM, but there's something that you can help me out with today, that you don't sell, that you could give away to me for free. It might be that you're amazing at LinkedIn. It might be the fact that you're a great interviewer and you can
Mhm.
teach me. Like, I've had a podcast, I have my own TV
Right.
show. Maybe you could teach me about something about the art of this, and you read this book and you did this webinar. So I always approach it, instead of saying like, how do you have an authentic relationship that feels so
Right.
fabricated? How can you be the most helpful person in the room?
Yeah. And I love that. I love that because it's such a simple concept. And I, as I always say, simple doesn't necessarily equate to easy, but it's such a simple concept to genuinely want to be helpful. And like you say, I mean, yeah, I'll give you an example. We had a customer, they wanted to do something around their events, right? It's not necessarily connected to what Pipeliner does. We were actually able then to help them automate a whole like events, management solution for them. But that was out of the box, and it was literally because we have done a lot of events. ourselves.
Mhm.
We're not an event company. We don't sell, we don't help people how to do events, but we've done a lot of events. So we were able to collaborate and give advice. And then we ended up with a great solution.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I rephrase the question in 2 or 3 different formats when somebody doesn't really understand it. It's
Mhm.
often somebody who is a little bit more analytical, somebody who might be an introvert, someone who you put them in a room with 15 people and they get nervous. So I
Mhm.
always say, like for that executive, I say to them, if you went to a trade show and you all leave and you go have a coffee or it's cocktail time and 5 people could come up and ask you something that you're great at, what would be the common question and how would you help them, right? So think about how you can help them and figure out a way to insert that into the next conversation you have with them, whether you're on a sales call, whether it's an operation call, whether you're doing onboarding. Find a way to be supportive in one way or another that you're already great at.
Yeah, and exactly, and I think that's great because that's really simplifying it and making it very tangible for people. Because you're right, because sometimes I think we just tend to overcomplicate things, and also especially in corporate America, and especially among I think technology companies are some of the worst offenders here. Is they have tried to use technology not as an enabler but as a barrier often between
Mm.
them and customers, and then you lose all of the opportunities to do what you're talking about there, to be helpful in small but highly meaningful ways.
Yeah, that makes me think about what makes me think of one client and one prospect. So
Mhm.
yesterday I had a call with a prospect who put in their drop down form that they did not have enough budget for me to help them. I don't have these cancel these calls. This person might be able to introduce me to someone.
Yeah.
This person might have an audience. This person might be able to help me with the way that I raise my son or be a better husband.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for something to make me better outside of work. And I started off this 30-minute kind of audit call where I just started to spell out 3 things that this person could do inside of her nonprofit that would have an impact within 3 months. And it based it completely around the resources of the people she had in house and what they would be
Mhm.
able to pull off and things that already had success. She took notes the entire time. And she said at the end, she says, "This is fantastic. I was going to pay $20,000 for this one-time setup call for this other person. Can I hire you?" Well, my monthly fee is way less than $20,000. I didn't think she had the budget. I was trying to deliver as much impact as possible within 20 minutes so that she knew what to do. And sure enough, she said, "I'll have this approved within 2 weeks." The second
Mhm.
person, John, was about 2 years ago. We were working with a client that I've had for 5 years, and they needed to find a way to increase their price point for a subscription
Mhm.
that they have because they were having an operation problem, a capacity problem. So every
Right.
time they grew, they had to spend more. Well, they had to solve that. So and I said, they said, "How are we going to do this? If maybe we run ads, we run a higher price tier." I said, "Why don't we just go to the clients who've paid for the subscription in the last 3 years and ask them what are the things that they want included in their subscription that they'd pay twice the price for? And what are the things that we're currently delivering that we could take away from to make this extra tier?" It's kind of like when Starbucks told us that they were no longer going to serve us coffee at our table. We had to sit around, pay
Mhm.
for a coffee that costs $4, and the only thing we want extra is they're going to know our name, but they're
Mm.
not going to have any waiters in the restaurant. Well, the same thing. And she said, "Amazing." Well, that client now charges 3 times the price for their high end subscription because they asked questions of how they could be the most helpful person.
Yeah, and I love that example because oftentimes, we're always talking about changing in buyer behavior and consumer behavior and all of that, and people think that it's some kind of mystery. Like, how do I understand this, and do I need to hire consultants? And what you just said there is, it's as simple as talking to your customers and asking them what do they value and what don't they value, because that's even more, if you like, value. I hate you using the word value all the time, but that's even more valuable to you to know what they don't value as much as what they do value, because in the end, if you're pumping resources into something that your customers don't value, there's a great opportunity for you to refocus over to what they actually really value. But it does come from conversation. So back to your point, if you're not having those genuine conversations, you're not going to learn this.
Mm. It's I don't you use the word simple at the beginning, but I don't know what else to say. Is it the famous, acronym KISS? Keep it
Yeah.
simple, stupid?
Yeah, no, no, 100%. And what I going back to your first example there of the prospect, and it's that idea. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but I haven't come across it. I'll be frank with you that often. But this idea of giving freely. And having that abundant mindset to know that I can give you some advice. I may not get anything in return for it. You may not pay me for it. You may not refer me, but I'm going to give it to you because I want to genuinely be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of I learned this as a kid from my father, and from my grandfather. But where I started to live it was I joined an entrepreneurship group online probably in 2012 called Dynamite Circle. It's one of my favorite communities, similar to Rhodium, another favorite community. And they have a give before you ask, right? Or give
Mhm.
without asking policy. And there's just a whole bunch of entrepreneurs in there, always, always, always giving. And I started to figure out, like when I started doing this, I did it because of my mission and it resonated with me, but it also brings money.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a helpful person, people want to be around helpful people, and that ends up there's enough people who say, I'm not gonna do this, no, I'm not gonna do this for free."
Yeah. And no, and I think that's such a good that's such a good example of that. And it really is this idea of giving and being generous. Because again, we live in a world where people are tend to be very reticent and like want to put up walls and barriers, and everything needs to be, I'm not going to even step forward unless I get a commitment from you. But as you say, I mean, when you put these things out into the world and when you are genuinely helpful, but it does have to be intentional, right? I mean, you have to decide that that's what you're going to be, because mostly it doesn't come naturally to most people,
Mhm.
especially in the corporate world.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't come natural. You almost have to figure out how to move that mental muscle. I have a client who just started with me, and I asked him. I said, like, where's your 80/20 from client flow? And the person
Mhm.
said word of mouth referrals. And I said, are you doing anything in your marketing or sales to increase that? And I said, no. And he said, "Well, where would you do that? I can't know more people." I said, "Potentially no, but you could be more intentional about helping." And I said, "Just join a paid community so you don't have spam in there. You don't have a bunch of
Right.
schmarmy people putting things into your DM, right? It doesn't have to be Instagram and it doesn't have to be LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Pay for paid community of people that are like-minded with you. Log into those forums, log into those Slacks, those Discords, whatever it is, Circle and so forth, and go in there and find one or two people that you can help out with every single day. Like I just sent 20 minutes before you and I spoke. There was a guy on there who I know is an amazing person. I've seen him. We've never met in person. I sent him a DM. I said, "Hey, there's 3 people on my team, so have some extra capacity. Is there anything I could do for your personal brand?" Right? Like
Mm.
just figure out a process where you can start to share some of your internal workflow with somebody else, and they're going to remember you. It's the muscle memory. It's muscle memory.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we say today, that the referrals and reviews and all that are the currency right now. But then people are losing faith in obviously online reviews and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really, the word of mouth is really, I mean, it was always the most effective, but it's resurfacing again as, if you really want to stand out, you really need to have people who are going to talk on your behalf. And
Mhm.
why would you talk on behalf of someone if they just meet your expectations and that's it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in to your point around online reviews, yeah, that's been overplayed, and some of the bad marketers have burnt that bridge for us, but not video, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I've worked with a private equity client for the last year, and when we started, there were no case studies on their website. By Q2, we'd put 5 case studies on their website and created a YouTube video around each one of them. 30% of their traffic on their website in
Is it?
Q2 was only to case studies. Can you
Hmm.
imagine how much money, how many prospects, how much they were losing out on from not having case studies beforehand? And that is just letting someone speak about how helpful you are, and that's a genuine relationship that you're making over video with one of your previous clients with your future prospects.
Yeah, and to be honest, Pete, it's a great barometer, isn't it? Because if you go to your customers and say, "Oh, would you do a customer testimonial for me? Would you do a video?" If they jump and say, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll do a testimonial or I'll do a video," then you know you're doing something right. If you go to them and they're all like, "I'm not so sure. Let me get back to you on that," and you don't get any, that's a really good barometer to say, "Yeah, maybe I'm not as good as I think. Maybe I don't have the relationships I thought I had. Maybe I haven't been as helpful as I thought I was."
Yeah, yeah. We get, I love this. You and I could go on for forever, but there's two things that made me think of. I only have kind of two outbound marketing motions inside of my agency, Strategic Pete. One of them is we find brick and mortar companies that have less than 10 reviews on Google Review that have above a 4.9
Mm,
average. And so we know that they have an amazing product or amazing service, but they have no idea how to share that with other people. And the
right.
very first thing we do is we go create case studies for them. So we're just taking what they're already great at and just doing a better job of casting the net so people know about them. And then the second thing we do is we go find founders of companies that are in kind of our price point, which is about $1 to $10 million, and we find a founder who has the most helpful person on a podcast. So, like John, like when you and I turn off the recording, I'm gonna say, John, who's the most helpful person that you've heard on a podcast, a founder type person? You're like, this podcast nailed it. I go track down that person and I go cut up all of their content and help them use that for LinkedIn and for cold and for email nurturing and then turn it into ads. And it's the exact same thing. I'm going to find somebody who's already helpful and increasing the reach of their helpfulness.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great concept as well. And I think the other thing too is, Pete, if some people are struggling with getting their head around this, as we said, simple but it's not always easy, is it's probably a good thing to stop for a moment and think about which of the companies that you interact with or people that you interact with would you, if they came to you and asked you for a testimonial or a video, or who are the people who you recommend without them ever asking you, and then ask yourself, why would I do it for them, and then turn it around and say, well, then why wouldn't people do it for me? What am I doing wrong and what are they doing right that I could mirror?
Yeah, yeah. That makes me think about kind of bigger brands that struggle with owning their narrative,
Hmm.
right? So like last year I did a documentary for the healthcare space, more specifically the nursing home space, so long-term care.
Mm.
Bad reputation from COVID, my opinion, undeservedly so. And so we wanted to control the narrative around that. So that's what exactly we did. We went and talked to their happy customers, their happy employees, and then shared that. And to the point is, I was talking to my team today. I said, "Who we're going to do the next documentary for?" And I said, "I want to find two brands that get a bad reputation because there's loud people on Twitter or loud people on Facebook or something that I actually love." And the person goes, "I bet you can't name any brand that is well known, that everybody hates and that you love, Peter, and we go do a documentary for him." I said, "I can. You ready?" I said, "I love T-Mobile. Love T-Mobile. T-Mobile's amazing. I go everywhere in the world with T-Mobile. I want to do it." And then they said one more. I said, "All right, can you name an airline that anyone likes?" And they're like, "No." And I said, "I love Southwest. Everybody complains about all the delays. So go find somebody. If you're in sales or if you're in marketing,
Mhm.
go find somebody you know has a good product, but they're unable to control their narrative, and help them position that."
Yeah, that's such a great concept. Yeah, I mean, we have that a little bit in the CRM industry. Everybody traditionally has a very bad rap. We've spent a lot of our time overcoming that just kind of general broad brush that tends to be out there. But I love that idea because it's so great, isn't it, that you could come to like a brand like that and just say, hey. Guess what? I'm a happy customer. I want to help you guys. I want other people to be. I guarantee you have more happy customers because I I was talking to somebody else this morning who was going through some medical stuff, and I said, don't pay attention to the stuff online. I said, go find real, because generally speaking, people just post when they have bad experiences. The people who have good experiences just tend not to, because they have a good
True.
experience, they move on with their lives.
Yeah.
So I love that concept, because yeah, there's probably tons and tons of happy customers out there, but unfortunately it's the noisy ones who get heard.
It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Pete, this has been fantastic. All of Pete's information is going to be below this video. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about Strategic Pete and what you do.
Yeah, Strategic Pete is a fractional chief marketing officer agency. So that means if you just need strategical leadership, that's where I am. I'll go to your executive meetings. If you need execution, that's me plus my team. I have 15 people behind me who
Yeah.
help with PR, founder led marketing, and everything around data and project management to make sure that you get a clean ROI on that. So love to connect. Easiest place to find me, John, is on LinkedIn. I'm the only Peter Murphy Lewis on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, strategicpete.com.
Excellent. And another time we can talk about the zoo. That's what I
Let's
really
do
want
it.
to talk
Do it.
about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So listen, thanks again, Pete. Thank you all for watching, listening, and I will see you all again very soon. Thank you.